being open throughout the day. The mission programs as well as drug treatment counseling. Anderson previously worked at the mission as director of academics, as well as a high school teacher and a pastor in the Bay Area. He also attended Simpson University. And for sitting down with us and our readers.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you all the readers.
Oh, great. So tell us, how did you come to work at the mission?
Oh man, how much time do we really have, Joe? There's a in the brief version. This has always been a passion of mine. It's always actually been my dream job to work in this environment, pastoring at one of the churches in the Bay Area. Social justice was always really on my heart, and I never felt comfortable behind a pulpit. I felt comfortable on the streets, really. And so my wife and I, we got married up here in 2010, and that's when I was actually in the police academy. And you know what? It's just God really opened the doors to the mission. And Cesar Partita got a hold of my resume and asked me to be their academic director and kind of revamp and build what the academic center is today. So that's the short story of how I wound up here.
And why did you seek to become the head of?
Good question. At first, I really didn't want to be. I fought that. Truth be known, I really fought that. And Caesar believed wholeheartedly that I was to be the next person. And you know what? We had a lot of people interview for the job. A lot of people go for the job. And in the end, I felt kind of like if you read the Bible, Moses, who stands before this burning bush, and God says, "Moses, speak to Pharaoh." And Moses says, "But God, I'm not a man of eloquent words." And I felt like all I was doing was saying, here's the reasons why I can't do the job. And God saying, "No, Jonathan, trust in me. Don't trust in your own ability." And you know what? I know that I am called to be in this position for a time and for a season. And right now I'm loving it. I tell people I love the job. Don't envy the position. It's stressful, but it's good.
So why originally did you not want to be?
I think we as humans, we look at our inabilities a lot of times, and we look at who am I to be in that position, who am I to take that role. I'm comfortable as the academic director doing my passion, teaching people, investing in people one-on-one. Who am I to lead an organization? And those are the questions that would run through my mind. And ultimately it took looking back over the past 14 years of my life specifically and saying, how has God shaped and formed my heart for this? And when I really looked at how God has shaped who I am, I realized He shaped me for this position. And that's when I said, okay, I cannot deny that. I have to go for this.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So since you've become the executive director, what changes have been implemented at the mission?
I think on a philosophical level, really identifying that a lot of people who come to us have an entitlement mentality. It's the mentality that says, I have nothing, so you have to give to me. And so philosophically in the mission, we're trying to break that mentality and say, you might think you have nothing in life, but let us restore dignity, let us restore value to you and show you what you do have to offer. You can offer yourself. And you are worth something extremely valuable in our society, in our community. So what can you help give back to our community? And in response, when our community sees you helping give back, you're going to see that they value you as well. And so on a philosophical level, breaking that entitlement mentality and restoring it with the mentality of giving back that gives both back to the person and gives back to the community at the same time. Then on the theological level, really emphasizing, we're faith-based. We're not a social service agency. We're a house of God. And so on a theological level, really emphasizing love. God is love. The greatest commandment, go love your neighbors, right? So how do we love each other? How do we love our community? And how do we promote that love? So holding people accountable to aspects of love and really implementing that, sharing that between each other, and emphasizing that as our overall theology. opening our campus to a day schedule. And so now we have a day schedule where people can stay on campus all day voluntarily. They volunteer to enroll in any type of programs that we have that we're offering. So they don't have to go out on the streets. They can stay on campus. That is something that's brand new. We've never done that. At the same time, we made what most public doesn't know. We made a huge number of changes organizationally and within regard to our flow chart as well. And so that has been all specifically to cater best to the needs of our guests and our students at the mission. So actually restructuring the way that our staffing is in the mission. A good example is we had our pastor who was also the disciplinarian. He is the authority figure, and for the first time ever, we made a pastoral position and asked him, would you be the pastoral position? Now we will hire someone else to be the director over the guest services, and they will act in that. Because how can you be the pastor while at the same time telling someone they're losing services, right? It doesn't quite work. So organizationally, we are doing things behind the scenes as well.
Okay. I'm wondering, I know something you talked about in the past also is if you're causing trouble in our community, we will deny you services, and until we can talk to you and talk about the trouble you're causing and how you're going to get back on the right path.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So, good question. Good analogy. We have policies for our guests. Policies when they come in, they're well aware. No loitering around businesses, no stealing shopping carts, no panhandling, things like this, linking with the Merchant Crime Watch. So if we have a video, and it has to be a clear picture of someone breaking into a store, smashing out windows, anything like that, if we can identify them, we have our whole software database we created. Everybody who comes through is in that database, and we're able to put alerts on their account. This day, this time, this is what so-and-so was doing. They were out panhandling. They know that's a violation. So we'll put no services on their account. When they come in for a meal, come in for bedding, come in for any type of service, it will pop up, and our case management staff will see and say, hey, before you can have services, we want to talk about your negative behaviors. We want to give you the opportunity to address those behaviors and overcome them. If you're willing to work, fantastic. That's our ultimate goal. If you're not willing to work with us, then we're going to deny these services. And it's drawing kind of that hard line in the sand, and that's holding people accountable to that action of love.
And what do you mean by services that you're denying them? What services?
Services could be, well, if they're being denied all services, that's everything that the mission offers. But services, so the services we have all of our educational classes. We have the sleeping, just staying. You can be denied staying there overnight. You're now kicked out of the mission. Services, the food. I mean, it all boils all the way down to even just receiving your meals. So it's an incentive program. It's a carrot and stick approach.
And I'm wondering, how do you know when you're saying to someone we're going to deny you services, how do you know you're picking out the person who actually caused trouble?
Easy. We have staff who have been at this mission for many years. If you can take a picture, if we can take a picture, our staff is canvassing the area and takes this picture, we upload it into their account. Every single person who comes through has their picture on their ID cards and on their account, and they're very easy to match it. Plus, we deal with them every single day, so it would be like someone saying, how do you know Joe was the one who was out there panhandling? Because we saw Joe panhandling, right? I know Joe. So it's not a this is a random person just coming through. These are people that we know and we work with and we deal with every day of our life.
All right. These are a lot of changes at the mission. I'm wondering, quite simply, how are you able to do this? How are you finding funding for all these different changes?
Not all the changes take a tremendous amount of funding. The Journey Home project, one of the changes we implemented, That does take funding. That's all coming. All of our funding comes straight from private donations, and so I should put that out there. Some people kind of get that wrong. We don't receive any state funding at all. No government funding. All private donations, and so we get all of our funding right here from this local community, which is a tremendous amount of support that our community gives to us and believes in us for. So we are incredibly grateful for that. But a lot of these programs, that the changes we're doing, a lot of them don't require any additional funding for that, aside from the journey home, because we're paying for tickets, bus tickets.
Okay. So I'm curious, what does the mission provide to the homeless who aren't actually staying at the mission, but perhaps
Yeah.
are staying nearby or other parts of Reading?
Good. So we do have, and here's a good thing to know. You want to talk about the people who are in that working poor class. You know, a lot of people who are staying in motels, living from paycheck to paycheck. They're working. They have families. They're on the verge of actually being homeless and on the streets. And so we are able to open every service we have. Come in, do the job readiness if you want to do that. Go through our professional interview counseling skills. Go through the computer literacy classes if you want. The meals are all completely open. All of our restroom facilities are open. They can come in and they can use our showers and whatnot. Last year, our shower facilities for people who were not residents, I believe we did just over 800 showers for people who were not residents of the mission. So we cater not just to people who are homeless and living on the streets, but we cater to that working poor as a safety net to help them not go onto the streets and go back into that poverty.
And I guess when it comes to food, how many meals a day do you provide?
On average, 600 meals a day. Right now, that's our average.
All like per like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or
Yeah,
total?
so total for, you can average it 200, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So total in one day would be an average of around 600.
All right. So let's talk about the homeless living on the streets in Shasta County. It seems to be on many people's minds these days. What is the mission seeing in terms of the growth of homelessness?
Really, really good question. When we go out, you know, with county mental health, health and human services. We go out with our staff, with our team. RPD's gone out on those as well, and really try to do good surveys within that population of what we find of people living in encampments. A good number, close to about 300 people living actually on the streets. When you look at the point-in-time surveys and you look at there's almost 3,000 people homeless in Shasta County. Well, definition of homeless, those can be people who are couch surfing. That incorporates sheltered people, but at risk of becoming homeless. But for actually unsheltered people on the streets, I would say my best guess to that would be close to around 300 people who would be unsheltered right now on our streets and within our encampments. Are we seeing a huge growth in population of that unsheltered? I think we have a slight increase, but I believe a lot of them are just more prominent within the heart of the city right now. A lot of them, as we shut down the camps, they're moving into more the heart of the city. They might be moving in more to the community, so we're seeing them more where we weren't seeing them. But a lot of them are the same people. So, but then we do have, you know, you're always going to have that influx of people who are just traveling and wandering through the I-5 corridor. We have 299 going, you know, east and west. So you're going to have these people who are just wandering and traveling, and that's a dynamic that I don't think you could really calculate in 1 year from that population.
So, I guess, why are they here? The individuals that you see on the street, why are they here in Reading?
Assuming that they're not already from Reading?
Correct.
So a lot of them, vast majority, we find are from, but we do find people who may not be from Reading. So many different reasons. One of the reasons, though, is our area really is known for our drug use. Methamphetamine and is historically, Shasta County has been known for its methamphetamine production and use. Heroin is now on the rise, and if it's not above meth use, it is going to be above methamphetamine use. And so with heroin and meth, very easy access to, I believe that draws a lot of people. But also, I don't know if most people know, we have one of the largest marijuana cultivation sites in the nation. The Emerald Triangle, if you look at Shasta National Forest, Trinity National Forest, Mendocino National Forest, we have one of the largest marijuana cultivation sites in the whole nation. That is a huge attractant to people as well, who can come up in and just get paid to help cultivate the marijuana. And when it's harvesting time as well. So you have the drug trade, you have the drug scene that is the weather, inclement weather, things like that. Is it just people coming for charities and social services? I don't believe people are coming from all around. There's 32 just rescue missions in California, 52 on the whole West Coast, and 300 nationwide. So there's access to charities and social services all around. But here is an aspect of social services, as Chief Paoletti, he's really opposite of what some people think. We have a very good relationship and candid dialogue with each other, and as we research this together, something that I'm finding is there is a population of people who come from out of state into our community, specifically California, but into Shasta County, to get on SSI. People who come from a different state to get on California SSI, and when we ask them about it, they say, well, California pays about $200 more than other states. And so we can get more money on SSI here than we can in the states that we're from. And so that's something where we've recently been researching and finding across quite an overwhelming number of people. So that's actually a big concern of ours at the mission. That if people are doing that, we really need to take a look at how we're using that program and who we're using it for and catering it to, and not letting people abuse it, because there's people in our community who need SSI, who need disability, who need the welfare system, but there's a lot who abuse it at the same time.
So, I guess I'd like to ask one last question before we get to the audience questions. And it's this: what's the biggest misconception you hear about the mission?
There's so many. I hear a ton. A big one that I hear often is, I'll say two big ones that I hear often. One is the aspect of money. Where do we get our money from? So you'll see that we've received grants from the Federal Home Loan Bank, right? That's a private institution. It's not a government, and they nationwide, and they give out all over our nation to agencies like ours. But at the same time, we didn't receive a $1.5 million grant. We received a supplemental grant, and so what it is we have to raise our $1.5 million, and they will match out of that grant. So if we only raise $200,000, we only received a $200,000 grant. If we can raise $1.5 million, that's the max that they will match us up to. That's for our new campaign. But the other one that I hear a lot is people say, the mission is at its max capacity. They turned away 500 people last year. I hear that all over, and I believe they heard that quoted at Safe City Project. I think that's where they heard it. But that 500 number, that's not our guest population. We actually have never had to turn anybody away. We've never been at our max capacity. That 500 number is the number of applications we receive for people trying to get in our drug and rehabilitation program. There's a massive for drug and rehabilitation programs. We can only house 30 men in the recovery program, 16 women in the recovery program. for an 18-month period, and we will average anywhere from last year I think we averaged anywhere from 300 to 400 applications just last year for that program. So that's not the number of guests coming to us, that's the number of applicants trying to get in the recovery program. For our guest side, the people, and let me differentiate. Students, I refer to as the people in our recovery program. Guests, I refer to as the people who are actually homeless, unsheltered, living at the mission. And so that's a big one that I think people should know and be aware of.
So, all right. Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
Let's get to our readers' questions. Here's how it works if you're just tuning in. Go to .com, click on the live article, and submit your question at the bottom via Scribble Live. You can also tweet using the hashtag Reading Mission. We'll provide a recap later today, along with the full video into easily viewed and shared chunks. So, our first question is, Jonathan, would you support additional efforts to bring additional homeless facilities to the area?
Good question. Good question. Behind the scenes right now, I am in lots of discussion with other social service agencies. I'm in discussion with both our county and our and we're discussing topics behind the scenes currently. And so for me, would I support those? If it's best for our community and best for the people we're serving, 100% support that. If it is not best for our community and it is actually more an enabler and a hindrance, then no, I wouldn't support it. All contextual, and really we need to figure out what's best. And so right now, a good example, I'm really trying to work with Doug Christian, who's doing the Shasta Humanity Project, transitional housing, and the way that they've developed it and set it up, I think it's good for our community. I really do think it's good, and we have people at the mission who are getting jobs almost on a weekly basis while living at the mission, and where do they transition out to? So last year we helped 131 people transition out of the mission. With more transitional housing, we could probably see a little bit higher rate of that and have an easier transition process for them. So depends all on the context of the situation, what the organization is, what they're promoting. Good example of how, yes, we do promote and try to partner with everybody.
Okay. We have one question here. They're asking about the troublemakers that the mission allegedly attracts. For those of you who don't know, Chief Rob Paoletti had his officers conduct a survey of individuals whom his officers contacted while on bike patrols. They asked them, where were you from and why did you come to Reading? Out of 188 people, about 2/3 responded, and those 2/3 were broken down pretty evenly between I came here for friends and family, I came here for charitable services such as the Good News Rescue Mission or the Hope Van, and finally I came to stay. I was passing through, my vehicle or transportation just broke down. And this person is asking, what reduce the troublemakers you attract? And I'm curious, you talked a little bit about it, but I was wondering if you could elaborate on whether is the mission attracting these problem people, mm-hmm. and what are you doing to try to keep them from
Good question. So first off, out of that population, and it was roughly 46 people that they say and when you talk to Chief, he'll tell you this is self-reported data. This is them saying this is why they're here. Doesn't necessarily mean that's the reason why they were here. A lot of times the mission does get scapegoated, and people say, oh, well, I'm here for the mission. I'm not going to tell you why I'm really here. I'm just going to use that as an excuse. But there is a population of people who come through, and we get them who are more, let's call them the criminal transient population. And that's why we have to draw a hard line in the sand to be able to figure out who are those people who really don't want the services and they're just trying to take advantage of the system versus those who do want the services. And so let me say it like this. The mission wants to be a of those who want and need help We do not want to attract those who are bent on havoc and destruction within our community. Best analogy I can give is you have to look at us like a hospital. Hospitals are not designed to create sickness. Sick people go to hospitals to receive healing. However, when they leave the hospital, they're not going to automatically be healed in one day. There's follow-up on their part to make sure that healing happens. Same thing with the mission. Mission does not create criminal behavior, nor does it create homelessness. We are there to help homeless people break that cycle of poverty. But just because they leave in one day doesn't mean they're going to have a home in one day. So it's a process on their part. But what are we specifically doing to draw that hard line in the sand? Using our software database to track every single person who comes through, to upload case management notes on every single person, and confronting them before they can receive services. We have policies in place that actually detract criminal intent and criminal behavior. So are we attracting criminal element? I do not believe we attract the criminal element. Though a lot of people might come on, I wouldn't say a lot, some people might come on who have that behavior, they will be weeded out fast and they will be gone. But we also want to give them the opportunity to overcome that behavior by confronting it. Because if they can overcome that behavior and we can break that cycle of poverty with them and they don't go back in that lifestyle, that's a success for all of us.
Okay. I know that one thing that's come up in the news recently is ordinance, and we've gotten a couple questions about it. So I'd like to ask, first of all, what do you think about the sit-lie ordinance? And secondly, do you think that these tickets that are issued, will they actually be paid? And if not, what good would they do?
I don't think it's my position. I'll speak to this, but I don't think it's my position to really be able to talk about will they pay tickets or anything like that. You know, that's more on the law enforcement side to answer those questions. What I want to say is how do we respond positively about this? So if there is a sit-lie ordinance, what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to work with his patrol officers and say, hey, if you go out on the streets and you find someone out there, let them know the mission has a day campus open, a day program. You don't have to be sitting on the streets. You can go take advantage of the programs that the mission has. We have a lot of programs. One of them that a lot of people are showing interest in is our community garden. Go onto the mission's campus. They're offering gardening classes that are taught by volunteers, and then you can actually go in and work the land as well. And so a lot of various options that people don't have to be on the streets. They can be on that campus throughout the day. I'd like to look at it on a proactive sense that way. Can people afford it? Good question. A lot of homeless people are receiving SSI benefits. So can they afford it? Some can. Will they pay it? It's not for me to be able to say whether they will or won't. I think that's for someone else to speak to that.
I think we're going to have to take a short break, but stay tuned. We will have more. Thank you. Again, thanks for sitting down with us.
Absolutely. This is great.
Welcome back to Reading.com's live chat with Executive Director of the Good News Rescue Mission, Jonathan Anderson. Again, thanks for taking your time out of your day to sit down with us. Getting back to the questions from here's an interesting one. How do you define someone as locally homeless versus not local in terms, I guess, is it that they lived here 1 year, 3 years, 5 years? I guess when you're talking about people who are locally homeless versus people who are homeless from out of the area, how do you differentiate?
Yeah. I honestly believe that question is going to be more suited to our Continuum of Care Council, because they're the ones who are putting out and going with definitions. That's what we've done at the mission is in our software database, we have now, we are tracking that so that we can get accurate statistics. We're not saying whether a person's local or not. We're saying when you live in the county for 0 to 6 months, 6 months to 1 year, 1 year to 5 years, 5 years to 10 years. In the past 10 years, I don't think we really need to worry about that. And so those are the questions that we're asking, we're tracking, so that way next year we can give an accurate of what we're seeing within the mission itself. But to say what's local, what's not local, the mission doesn't really attribute what's local or not. We just want to look at actually what is the solid amount of time you were here.
Okay.
Hope that answered that okay.
I understand. So one proposal that other cities have looked at, and perhaps some have implemented, is a tent city with bathrooms to help the homeless. What's your take on that idea of creating essentially a area where they can camp out, then they have bathrooms and other facilities?
Again, that my personal perception, that is more for the city and the county officials to discuss if that's something they want to do, should do. If the city and or the county are the ones putting the restroom facilities out there, there's a lot of red tape and regulations for the sanitary portions of it. I think you're also looking at what is the environmental impact of the place that they're going to be living in, and then what are the conditions and who's going to police it, because you still need to police that. Why? What if you're having there? Now CPS is going to have to be involved. What if there's sex offenders and children living there? You have a huge problem. And so there still is going to have to be community involvement, more government resources going to it for who's taking care of the sanitation, the environmental impact, as well as the policing of the overall place. It's not really a simple solution. This is a really complex thing we're dealing with. But we do actually have quite a number of resources in Shasta County where people can go and take advantage of restroom facilities, take care of their hygiene, all of that throughout the day and or the night. Missions 24/7, so they can be there, 24 hours a day. So those are questions better suited for our city and our county, but that's my initial reaction and perception to it. You really have to think critically about it because there's negative impacts to our community as well.
So we have a question wondering about, I guess, saying they've heard that there's a lice problem at the mission. Is there a lice problem at the mission? If so, what's being done about it?
You are always going to have some form of problems, no matter what they are, pest related or hygiene related, when you are in a living environment. So that's something we are highly aware of and very intentional upon. Good thing with lice, very easy for detect on our end and to get a hold of and make sure that's not being spread around. And so we actually have medical staff who are at the mission every day, and so we do our TB testings. We do look if people have lice, things like that. So if they do, they would go into our medical facility. The nurse would administer whatever they need for that, and then they go into our respite rooms. And so now it's isolated and it's not being spread outside of there. So pretty easy for us to contain and control.
Okay. So we have a question about the drug treatment services. So how many people actually in a year receive treatment go through your drug treatment program. And well, let's start there. How many people have actually gone through your drug treatment program?
So in our drug treatment program, you're going to have people who some aren't going to make it, they're going to drop out. We do a 5-phase approach. First phase is 1 month. The second phase is 6 months. Third phase is 3 months. And then our fourth phase, oh gosh, I think that's 1 month, and fifth phase is going to be about 5 months, I believe. That was it. So within that approach, people may drop out, so it's hard to say total number off the top of my head how many go through in just 1 year. We can accommodate a maximum of 30 men, 16 women. That would be our maximum. That's for an 18-year process. And so at 13 months, they transition out and they're living in our transitional homes that we own in the city. So we have people who are rotating in and rotating out throughout that entire period of time. But looking at 50 people per year, close to 50 people per year, is a solid number.
And those, you mentioned earlier about having to turn away 500 applicants.
Yeah.
So were all of them turned away because of lack of space, or how many were turned away for lack of space?
For the people trying to get into our 18-month drug and alcohol rehabilitation program, because we can only accommodate right now right around 50 people total, they would all be turned away due to lack of space, or they would be on a pending hold based on if we're monitoring someone and think, you know what, that person might not make it, so we have someone else pending. So that's how that's currently working. We're in the process of building a new recovery center for the women, which will house 36 women and children as opposed to the 16 right now. And then our current homeless shelter that we can house just 50 women inside of that shelter. Beyond that, they overflow into our chapel space. We're going to renovate that to have 80 beds for them with new restroom facilities and new kitchen inside there. So we're trying to meet the needs of what we're currently seeing, and that's the project. So almost double the capacity on both ends.
Oh, wow. So of those who were turned away, any idea on how many of them were local homeless versus homeless from out of the area?
Not all of our drug and alcohol people are homeless. A lot of them are not homeless and were not previously homeless. A lot of these people, they could be business professionals right here in this community. We do work with Shasta County courts with the Addicted Offender Program. So some of these people, most don't know this, if you were convicted of a drug-related crime in Shasta County, you went to the courts, were mandated to an Addicted Offender Program, you're going to have to serve that here in Shasta County, even though you may have been outside of county. So now you're trying to define, well, were they from out of county or in county? Well, they're mandated for the next 2 years of their probation sentence in Shasta County. So where are they from? That's an issue that you have to look at with the court system. But a lot of our people through that drug and alcohol program, I would say majority are not homeless, though we do have some who were previously homeless.
Well, let me rephrase them. How many of the people going through your drug and alcohol treatment programs are from the local area versus from out of the area?
I could actually run a report on it and give you the exact number, but I'd have to do that later today. Majority are from our area right here. What we've started doing in the last year, 2 years, is really trying to make sure that we're catering more to the needs of Shasta County. And our mission statement really is specific to Shasta County, or even just kind of surrounding our little surrounding counties too, but not taking people, say, from like Yuba City's Addicted Offender Program, not taking people from that, because we have a need here. So vast majority are right here, local. A lot of them are people who grew up with each other going to high school. A lot of them are local business owners who, due to drug and alcohol abuse, lost their business practice and are going into a recovery program.
Okay. Well, I think that about does it. Again, I want to thank you for sitting down with us and chatting with us. Yeah. Anything else you want to add?
Can I add one thing?
Yes.
Let me add this. I spoke about this yesterday in the Merchant Crime Watch group, and there's a lot of discussion going on in regards to homelessness right now. And I think it's healthy. I think it's healthy dialogue, healthy discussion. But in order for us to truly think critically about this, we need to know the context from which we are working with. And so I want everybody, I want to give you a real life story here that it's hard to hear, but we need to hear. Here's what it is. Majority of people who are coming to us at the mission have this very similar story. Majority of people. Most of our people who we see were forced into the drug scene before the age of 10 years old. Some, their parents were using throughout the entire labor experience. And so there are literally people who were born with drugs and or alcohol in their system. Here's what I want people to know. There's this young man, 19 years old, and I'll keep this kind of PG, but young man, 19 years old, when I spoke to him, he smelled awful, and he had a horrible attitude, and he just looked filthy. Nobody in our society would want to approach this type of person, and you would really have animosity towards him, and a lot did. And so as I spoke with them, I try to say, what is the root, man? What is going on in your life that causes you to be so angry, so bitter? And as we finally got to this, here's what it is. This young man, at a very young age, had to watch as his sister was being sexually abused. Then he began to receive that sexual abuse himself. Eventually, they were both taken out of that home and put into the foster care system. But he began to endure that same abuse while he was in the foster system. Eventually, he started using drugs around the age of 12 to numb the pain of that experience. At 18 years old, he genuinely hated humanity, was now addicted to drugs because he was trying to numb the pain of this awful experience, and now he is living homeless on the streets. And at 19 years old, he is bitter, he is angry, he is filthy, and he does not like people. That is the story of so many people that we deal with every single day. It's heart-wrenching, it's hard, it's a complex issue. That's not to excuse the negative behaviors that people have, but it's to show if we're going to talk about solutions and we're going to talk about solving homelessness and trying to help people, we really need to know where they came from. Because I hear a lot of people say, well, they just need to get off the drugs. How easy is it for this person to get off those drugs? If it was forced upon them, or if they started using at such a young age to numb the pain. At the same time, I hear people say they just need a job. Let me ask, would any employer in our city hire that person in their current state where they smell awful and they genuinely hate people? We wouldn't, because they would detract business from us. And so that's why on our end at the mission, we partner with so many local agencies to be able to refer people wherever their needs. It's important for all of us as a community to have that as a baseline of, it's not about just drugs, it's not about just not having a job. There's real deep-seated issues, and a lot of these will develop into mental health complexities at the same time.
All right. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you.
All right. Remember, you'll be able to find the videos in full online on our website and on Facebook. In addition, we'll have a review of the interview tonight online at reading.com and in tomorrow's Record Searchlight. And Jonathan, thank you for all your very detailed answers and for sitting down with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you. I look forward to one in the future.
Great. Me too.
Thank you.